If we dive into the world of Star Wars, there are hundreds of canons Jedi. The Sith Lords, legendary servants who work for the dark side of the powerful Force, stand in their way. While there are several Sith Lords who are actually named, only 6 are described in canon. Plagueis, Bane, Sidious, Tyrannus, Maul. There are a slew of additional fallen Jedi, trainees as well as Dark Force users on top of these famous Sith Lords. There's an abundance of outstanding figures from the historic order of Darksiders, ranging from canonical Sith Lords with wonderful storylines to all those Sith who have had great roles in the Legends timeline. The fearsome Sith are the most terrifying adversaries in Star Wars. In stark contrast to their Jedi counterparts, these malicious beings possess the vast strength of the evil side of the Force. As a consequence, the groups have fought for many thousands of years, accumulating a succession of critical milestones in the Sith Order's history. The Sith have grown in strength as more dark side secrets have been revealed, and particular practitioners went down in history in a striking manner. These formidable opponents put all of their wrath, venom, and fire into the black arts, spreading devastation throughout the universe in the process.
Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means an awful lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Why do you come to my tomb, Jedi?
Darth Bane. Darth Bane was given the birth name Decil, and he was born on the planet of Apatros, which was present in the territories of the Outer Rim. When his mother died while giving birth to him, his father proceeded to blame him, calling him the bane of his existence. When he arrived at the Sith Academy in Korriban, he was given the name Bane. His great master plan was to poison and incapacitate the Galactic Republic from within, disgrace the Jedi, and eventually conquer the galaxy. He was conscious that he may not survive long enough to see his idea come to reality. His patience was rewarded over 1,000 years later, after Darth Sidious completely wiped out the Jedi and formed the Empire. Darth Bane was a legendary Sith Lord from the tumultuous past who established the Rule of Two, which stated that there may only be 2 active Sith at any given time, an apprentice and a master. Bane worked in a cortosis mine, much like his dad before him. He became a part of the Sith Empire as a mere foot soldier to evade capture by Republic troops after an incident that led to the killing of a Republic trooper. He advanced to sergeant in the military regiment known by the name Gloomwalkers. His fighting abilities, paired with inherent force sensitivity, enabled him to command his unit to the status of elite force. His force ability drew the attention of the wicked Sith Lord Copex, who volunteered to instruct him on Korriban. He was constantly striving to be the most formidable Sith Lord. He'd look for old Sith manuscripts and holocrons to help him further understand and grasp the powerful dark side of the mythical Force. This passion would last long after he had graduated from the Sith Academy. He spent a significant amount of time training and developing his talents. As a result, he was capable of unleashing the dark side's most devastating powers. Bane used the all-offensive Form V's gem style. As an example, he may use his greater physical power to crush his opponents with raw force. His adversaries compare him to a natural force coming down on them. He was among one of the very few Sith Lords who used the curved hilt lightsaber. The curve of the hilt increased the force of overhand blows, which Form 5 used, and also varied the direction of the assaults by the slightest percentage of a degree, merely enough to mislead an opponent. Count Dooku is yet another fan of this lightsaber design. Surprisingly, some artworks depict Bane wielding a standard hilt lightsaber. Darth Bane's armor in the later days was made up of a certain type of living, deadly, parasitic beetle-like creatures known by the name Orbalisks, and once they were attached to their victim's skin, they were unable to be removed. They would inflict severe bodily anguish on their victims in order to feast on dark side energies. Bane would be in perpetual pain, which would feed his fury, which was possibly an influence for Darth Vader's constant state of anguish. The Orbalisks also pumped adrenaline and enzymes into his circulation, enhancing his physical power and enable him to recover nearly fast from any damage. Moreover, their shells were impervious even to lightsabers. This rendered Bane practically unbeatable. When he understood that his student, Darth Zana, was preparing for him to become old and feeble before confronting him for the position of Sith Lord, thereby violating the intent of the sacred Rule of Two, he chose to seek immortality. He stumbled across and uncovered Darth Adedu's holocron, where he discovered that he could utilize the power of the dark side to shift his spirit into some other body. Darth Sidious. The Emperor, whose birth name was Shiv Palpatine, was a Sith Dark Lord and one of the most prominent figures who played an important part in the Star Wars franchise. He was also the ruler of the Galactic Empire and ruled over the lands from the year of 19 BBY to the year of 4 ABY. He started off as a senator of Naboo and was a member of the Galactic Senate before slowly rising to power from that position. He has two identities in the Star Wars series, which he kept hidden, as he used them to further his political agenda and ambitions, while manipulating and controlling his way to the top to rule over everyone. These identities were Palpatine and Sidious. He was the one who was responsible for the downfall of the Galactic Republic and also the Order of the Jedi through the means of the Clone Wars, which were immensely destructive battles spanning the galaxy that involved the Confederacy of Independent Systems and the Galactic Republic. He then went on to establish his iron hold over the galaxy, which did not end until the time of his death. He was killed during the Battle of Endor, but the dark side of the Force gave him a great deal of power, due to which the Emperor was once again resurrected and made a comeback from his grave. Darth Sidious was born on the planet of Naboo, which was located in the Mid-Rim territories and was also between the Outer Rim territories and the Expansion region. His connection to the Force was one of the strongest ever known, and due to this, Darth Plagueis covertly trained him in the dark ways of the Siths at the time. Darth Sidious was not one to maintain his loyalties, for he eventually went ahead and murdered his Sith Master because he wished to take his position and have his own apprentice under him to train. And this apprentice was Darth Maul. The rule of two caused him to do all this, since the rule regulated the amount of existing Siths in the galaxy at any given time. Kosinga Palpatine was the name of the young Palpatine's father. Kosinga was an aristocrat who was dreaded by his wife, his two sons, and two daughters. However, the future emperor regarded him as a coward and a weakling, and he developed a strong loathing for him as a result. Palpatine saw that he was unusual and unlike his friends, thoroughly upset that others could not understand his ambitions. He grew into a spoiled, egotistical sadist who drove recklessly, murdered two people, and showed no remorse. Darth Plagueis began feeding off Palpatine and discovered he despised his father. Plagueis enticed Palpatine to the evil side. Kosinga recognized Palpatine's spirit was darkening and insisted that the little child quit his allegiance with Plagueis. Palpatine, refusing to obey the commands of the man he despised, murdered his parents and brothers before baptizing himself into the dark side, as his new master put it. Palpatine, who was evil, mentally warped, and utterly possessed by the evil side, turned into Darth Sidious, the monster we all are familiar with and love to loathe. Marka Ragnos. In the many years that led up to the famed Great Hyperspace War, Marka Ragnos was indeed the Dark Lord of the Sith. His death sparked a power struggle amongst Ludo Kresh, who was a powerful Sith Lord and father of Kresh the Younger, and Naga Sadow, who was a great Sith alchemist as well as a Dark Lord of the Sith who led the Sith Empire to the verge of galactic dominance in the Great Hyperspace War in the year 5000 BBY for control of the Sith Empire. We don't know much about Marka's talents, although he was more formidable than someone like Naga Sadow, who could generate solar flares while being fueled by the Sith Corsair. He was physically strong enough to defeat a Terran Tatek, a challenging match for even the most powerful Force users wielding their complete arsenal of powers. Ragnos lived on as a ghost after his death, yet, even in his spirit form, he was extremely strong. He was able to fling Darth Nox around, which was an astounding effort considering Nox was pre-prime. Marka Ragnos is one of the most powerful characters in Star Wars. He has been adept in Sith magic as well as alchemy. He was so proficient at it that he devised a staff or sword capable of draining the Force energy from a location or person and could be transferred to himself or more users. If such users are even slightly Force sensitive, their power increases twofold. If they are not Force sensitives, they form a bond similar to a Force sensitive. Ragnos' mighty scepter would annihilate the majority of people. However, even without it, he would undoubtedly prevail because he and his ancestors were responsible for developing the power ritual that Exar Kun, a Jedi who converted to the dark side of the Force, eventually used. This ceremony included squeezing the life from many thousands of Masasi, who were subspecies of the primitive Sith race, which provided Kun with enough energy to live on as a phantom for hundreds and thousands of years and blast humans without a physical body, leaving them as merely a burned skeleton. Ragnos went on as a spirit for far more time than Kun, yet had enough strength to occupy the Dark Jedi Tavion's body, which she later passed away because she couldn't deal with the evil rot that ate her up alive. Ragnos and his colleagues had completely mastered the evil powers of the Force, and thus could craft trinkets that made them almost invincible. Ludo Kresh himself bowed in front of the presence of Ragnos's ghost, profoundly humbled by him. Tavion depleted the Force gateways of several places, including the one of the Yavin 4 Vjun, who were a group of disciples led by Tavion and probably Dagobah, which was a swamp-covered planet. But it wasn't enough to revive Ragnos. He was also only impressed when he witnessed Vitiate as just a child slaughterer with a simple thought and took over his home world moon. He is probably one of the most impactful personalities ever created. Sidious or Plagueis would have been mediocre in comparison.
And there must always be a Darth Treya.
Darth Trava. Kreya's origin has always been a mystery. She spent the majority of her life as a Jedi. Kreya was a Jedi Master, Chief Librarian and Head Historian according to what is known. Kreya had the most access and confidence in the knowledge linked with what was presented to her when cataloguing Sith and Jedi relics. Kreya was well known as a Jedi Master for the unconditional and thought-provoking issues she presented to her students. Kreya's conundrums is how she makes it clear to her pupils that they cannot ignore her. They must pay attention and try their best. Revan was Kreya's most prominent Padawan. Revan, as somebody who took Kreya's teachings seriously, would later return to Kreya for advice, since he found standard Jedi teachings inadequate. The Mandalorian Wars had been in full stride at this time, with all of the Mandalorians leaving a path of destruction on practically every planet they encountered. Revan sought the advice of someone he respected, while other Jedi Masters were opposed to getting engaged in the Great Mandalorian Wars. Kreya turned against the powerful Jedi Order by understanding how the ancient Jedi Code hampered both Padawans and Jedi. The code, as per Kreya, was rife with absolutes. In actuality, it was full of half-truths. Revan's honesty drove him to act independently of the Jedi and engage in the destructive Mandalorian Wars. He was then able to gather a group of many other Jedi to battle alongside him, the bulk of whom were Kreya's other trainees. Unfortunately, this resulted in Kreya's slide towards the evil side. Because her pupils and Revan decided to go to war, the Jedi believed Kreya had influenced them to do so. They were her apprentices. They were at fault for abandoning the Jedi precepts, and also due to the fact that Kreya was their instructor, the blame lay squarely on Kreya's shoulders. This was not the case. During her tenure as a Jedi Master, Kreya also held Sith principles, teaching independence, encouraging moderate kinds of manipulations, and trusting in the analogous form of evolution. The Jedi thought Kreya was unsuitable to teach the Jedi Code properly as a result of these lessons. Their case was more compelling since Kreya's pupils had deserted them to participate in a prohibited war, equating their ideas with Sith morals. Darth Maul. Darth Maul is the original Star Wars villain who everyone despises. Because of his looks and acrobatic lightsaber abilities, the short-lived antagonist from the Star Wars movie The Phantom Menace turned into a fan favorite, and with his reappearance in the 4th season of The Clone Wars, he migrated into other media, like as the 4 parts of Son of Dathomir graphic novel. His unexpected return in Rebels introduced the antagonist to a completely new phase of Star Wars, when Maul battled with the early Rebellion heroes. His special fascination with young Jedi pupil Ezra Bridger resulted in a number of fascinating appearances. Underneath the 2 sons of Tatooine, Maul faced up against his old foe, Obi-Wan Kenobi, in his penultimate episode. Maul has been beaten, but that doesn't mean we won't see him again. If there's one thing the villain has shown, it's that he's not the type to stay on the ground. Talzin claims to be Maul's biological mother in Son of Dathomir. This is just slightly dissimilar to his history in Legends. In the young adult novel named The Wrath of Darth Maul, Maul's biological mother was a female Night Sister named Kaisina from the area of Blue Desert City. Talzin may still be bluffing, however, the Clone Wars provided Maul with a full family. Cybernetic implants are similar to battle scars in Star Wars. This isn't specific to villains, although Darth Vader as well as General Grievous had substantial cybernetic restoration. Darth Maul went through during his time in the Clone Wars as well, but it wasn't as clear in Son of Dathomir. Mother Talzin created Maul's initial prosthetic legs out of Night Sister sorcery and junk components. A comparable design for Darth Maul debuted many years ago in Old Wounds, a non-canonical comic, even in the Legends chronology, that chronicled the account of Maul's duel with Obi-Wan Kenobi on the land of Tatooine. Star Wars has several stories of young individuals growing up and discovering their real destinies. Luke Skywalker set a good example. However, Rey and Ezra Bridger quickly followed. Maul, on the contrary, is a constant apprentice, unable to break free from the twisted connection Darth Sidious has ensnared him in. In Rebels, Ezra and Maul's cooperation focuses as much on Maul determining his own path as it does on him issuing commands to Ezra. In the beautiful and sorrowful Twin Sons, Maul reveals a dying yearning to know if Obi-Wan was present on the world to protect the Chosen One. Obi-Wan answers yes, and Maul passes away thinking that the Sith can still rise whenever the Chosen One delivers balance.
Do you feel it is a...
Darth Nihilus. Darth Nihilus serves as one of the primary adversaries in the Star Wars game named Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Sith Lords. He is a Sith Lord who utilizes the dark side of the powerful Force to absorb the Force power of other sentient creatures in order to satisfy his insatiable appetites. He was a significant figure in the very first Jedi Purge, but he was eventually defeated by the Jedi Mitra Surik. Darth Nihilus's origins are unknown. All we understand is that he was involved in the Mandalorian Wars, and indeed the devastation produced by the battle had a significant impact on both him and everyone he knew. He was there during the Battle of the Planet of Malachor V. He was there during the Battle of the Planet Malachor V, which was the planet on which Revan led the last offensive against the Mandalorians, effectively ending the conflict. The conflict ended when Revan commanded Mitra Surik to use the Mass Shadow Generator, which is a contraption that pulled all the spacecraft that ringed the planet over into the space, killing everything and everyone. Thousands of people were killed on both ends of the conflict, but the Republic eventually triumphed against the Mandalorians. Nihilus was among one of the planet's last survivors. Nihilus succumbed to the Force's dark side in order to deal with his grief and withstand the unforgiving surface of the world in the aftermath. This gave him a sudden thirst, and he took the life power of a handful of the remaining troops surrounding him without realizing it. This brought some relief, but it didn't stay long. To satiate his thirst, he needed to discover more lives to drain. Nihilus became a scar in the Force as a result of this process. When a terrible incident occurs, the Force is altered. Force-sensitive persons are usually able to detect this. In the aftermath of the destructive Mandalorian Wars, a demoted Jedi named Trier traveled in pursuit of Force wounds. She tracked down Nihilus and vowed to teach him how to feed his appetite and ultimately take the life energy from entire planets. Trier taught the secrets of the dark side while she was at the Trius Academy, which was a Sith Academy on the planet of Malachor V that escaped the Mass Shadow Generator's destruction. Trier taught the secrets of the dark side while she was at the Trius Academy, which was a Sith Academy on the planet of Malachor V that escaped the Mass Shadow Generator's destruction. Trier trained another powerful darkside user called Sion alongside Nihilus. Darth Trier was the commander of Darth Sion and Darth Nihilus, and the three of them established the Sith Triumvirate. The Triumvirate's purpose was to establish the Sith Empire as well as exterminate the Jedi. Darth Revan. One of history's most powerful Force users, Revan had been a Jedi Knight who rose to prominence during the destructive Mandalorian Wars before succumbing to the dark side and establishing his own Sith Empire opposing the Republic, sparkling the Jedi Civil War. Revan was a brilliant Jedi Knight and the star of the Mandalorian Wars, but, for unexplained reasons, succumbed to the powerful dark side of the Force, creating his personal Sith Empire and claiming the title Dark Lord of the Sith. Revan's charisma would gain him many supporters, and the strength of his empire would expand to overpower the Jedi Order as well as the Republic, just as it had when he was a Jedi. Revan chose a Jedi and good friend named Alec as his Sith student, renaming him Darth Malak. Their triumph against the Republic appeared to be certain until their fleet fell caught in a Jedi trap. Bastila Shan sent a strike squad of Jedi on board Revan's ship to confront him in battle, but they were cut off by Malak, who used the chance to murder the Jedi and turn on his master, allowing him to rule the Sith Empire alone. Malak's flagship attacked Revan's, bombing the ship and killing both Revan as well as the Jedi. Malak then succeeded Revan as Dark Lord of the Evil Sith and ruler of the Sith Empire. It was widely accepted that Revan was not his original name, but rather the one he took after assuming the title of the wicked Dark Lord of the Sith. He was conceived on one of the remote worlds of the Outer Ring, and it is assumed by his old instructor Currie that this is what drew him back home later in life. Revan began his life just like any ordinary Jedi apprentice. He was snatched away from his parents and enrolled into the Order. Revan had an extraordinarily great connection with the Force from boyhood. He was also believed to be highly eager for information, and he moved through several teachers as it became clear that they could no longer educate him. Revan's methods were faultless, and his talents as a commander were unrivaled. The peak of their civilization was reached when he built the Star Forge, which was a massive shipyard facility that fed off from the dark side and harnessed its strength. Darth Vader. Darth Vader, who was the Dark Lord of the Sith and was the bane of the powerful Jedi, a maestro of the dreaded dark side of the Force, while also being one of the Emperor's most loyal subordinates. He was not always a fierce enforcer, though. He began his existence as a man named Anakin Skywalker, who was a young Tatooine slave, talented in fighting and harnessing the power of the Force. Anakin's origins are shrouded in mystery. His mother, Shmi, confessed that he had no biological father. Bafflingly, she became pregnant and had the Force prodigy after carrying him to term. Some Jedi felt this was a fulfillment of an ancient prophecy of a chosen one, conjured into being by the midi-chlorians, who were microscopic life forms who could really bring balance to an ever-darkening Force. But there was another option. The kid might have been the result of dark Sith operations, as the Dark Lords Darth Sidious and Darth Plagueis plotted to create the perfect disciple by pulling life from lifelessness. Anakin was brought before the wise Jedi Council to be schooled after being found by rebel Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn. Despite Jinn's strong assertions that Skywalker was the one who was mentioned in the prophecy, the Council was unwilling to accept his schooling at the tender age of 9. The Council eventually agreed that the young Anakin should indeed be mentored, and he was sent to a Jedi Knight named Obi-Wan Kenobi. Kenobi foolishly imagined the young boy to be as skilled as Master Yoda. His errors had disastrous ramifications for the cosmos. The looming dark side of the Force later enticed Skywalker. His limitless powers generated a feeling of self-importance that accelerated his demise. He despised the Jedi Code's structures and would surreptitiously deviate from the Jedi doctrines to suit his needs. Despite the fact that it was illegal, Skywalker actually married his girlfriend Padme Amidala. His intense concern for her protection became his biggest flaw, which the wicked Sith Lord named Darth Sidious was then able to profit from. Skywalker was troubled by images of his wife passing away during childbirth. Chancellor Palpatine, his confidant and friend, told the unhappy young Jedi that a road to immortality existed within the Sith doctrines. Palpatine exposed himself to be the Sith Dark Lord Darth Sidious. poisoning Anakin's senses with well-crafted expressions of admiration and conspiracy. Anakin, who had cause to question the Jedi's talents and motivations, began to gravitate more and more towards the dark side. When it was time for him to make the critical decision, he consented to follow Sidious's instructions and bowed before the evil master. Anakin Skywalker was then given the name Darth Vader. The Sith conspiracy that had lain dormant in the depths of the powerful Republic for a few thousand years erupted. The Chancellor promoted himself to Emperor Palpatine and dispatched Darth Vader as his supreme enforcer. Vader raced into the Jedi Temple using his unrivaled Force powers. He led his finest clone trooper forces down the polished halls, wreaking havoc on the Jedi who remained on Coruscant. Vader ended the Clone Wars by murdering the leaders of the Great Confederacy of Independent Systems on the land of Mustafar. In his twisted mind, he was delivering order and peace to the newborn empire, eradicating the corruption and turmoil of the Republic's final days. During the upheaval that followed Palpatine's accession to power, Vader had become one of the evil emperor's strongest and most devoted subjects. The Emperor assigned him the task of eliminating the Jedi Knights. Vader and his agents annihilated the remnants of the Jedi Order during these terrible days. Darth Zana. Darth Zana was raised on Somov Rit with a birth named Rain. She was the very first trainee of Darth Bane's new Sith Order. Zana, known as Rain as a youngster, was raised on the planet Somov Rit. She was one among many who were recruited to become a Jedi, despite not displaying considerable Force responsiveness for the forces of light during the current Sith conflict. She was isolated from the others during an ambush by the Sith Lords while being carried to her training facility on Ruusan. She was assumed to be dead, so the Jedi didn't bother looking for her. She was saved, though, by a local named La. La and Rain later escaped the planet-wide Force storm unleashed by the wicked Brotherhood of Darkness thanks to Rain's Force powers. La was slain shortly after by Jedi who mistook her for a Sith. Rain was filled by wrath after witnessing this and succumbed to the dark side, murdering the Jedi. Darth Bane, a Dark Lord who had just deserted the Brotherhood of Darkness, was drawn to this outburst of rage. When asked to tell her name, she first offered him the nickname Rain, before deciding to give him her full name Zana. Zana and Darth Bane were some of the few Sith and Jedi who survived the climactic battle on Ruusan. Before completely accepting Zana, Bane put her through one more test. She had to find her way independently off the world and then meet him on the mysterious planet named Onderon. She stumbled into a shuttle carrying a group of people who took her with them and carried her off the planet. She then attempted to compel them to transport her to Onderon, threatening with a blast gun. The family fought back and she slaughtered them all. She was ambushed by a primitive tribe on Onderon and nearly killed until Darth Bane saved her. Darth Bane was thrilled by her performance in the exam and recruited her as his apprentice. She would subsequently rise through the ranks to become Darth Zana. Darth Plagueis. Darth Plagueis was the Sith Lord before the Clone Wars began. Before the incidents of the Phantom Menace, he trained Sheev Palpatine. Plagueis' lessons developed Palpatine's command of the dark side in line with a legendary rule of two. Plagueis was then able to learn how to control midi-chlorians through his disciple Palpatine. He grew anxious and concerned about losing his power as he got obsessed with the potential to extend life for himself and all the people he loved. After teaching what he understood about the powerful dark side of the Force, he then was assassinated by his disciple Sidious, who ascended to Sith supremacy. Darth Maul, Sidious's protege, later ascended to prominence as his Sith disciple. Hardly anything is known about Plagueis' look or species in canon. Legendary texts concerning his life are significantly more detailed and descriptive. In canonical sources, a few hard truths are proven. His former student referred to him as the Wise, sans sarcasm. Based on these indications and now defunct legendary literature, some have argued that Plagueis may have played a hand in the mysterious birth of Anakin Skywalker, albeit this is not a confirmed canonical viewpoint. Darth Plagueis was a young Mun Sith master and a prominent member of the intergalactic banking clan born Hego Damask. Muns are tall, slender humanoids with long, hairless heads. After being injured in an assassination attempt, Darth Plagueis donned a black robe and a mechanized breathing device. Darth Plagueis was raised on the planet Maigito to a man named Car Damask, who was a mid-level operative for the famed intergalactic banking clan. Darth Tenebrous the ruling Dark Lord of the Sith, was responsible for his creation. Tenebrous forced a Force-sensitive Muun woman to seduce Scar, resulting in the birth of Darth Plagueis, a Force-sensitive kid. Growing up on Maigito, Hago realized early on that he was exceptional. His mom would take him on social outings with other kids and then interrogate him on his impressions of the other kids. Darth Plagueis fled from public sight after an attempted assassination nearly took his life, dedicating himself to the research of midi-chlorians as his apprentice achieved potential power. His objective was to figure out how to force midi-chlorians to live endlessly so that both he and his disciple, Sidious, could live indefinitely. Plagueis' single-minded commitment to the research of midi-chlorians, as well as his confidence in his protege, would be his undoing. Darth Geen. Geen was able to murder her Sith Master by breaching the Force defenses that Gravid had installed around the stronghold which they had created together on the world of Yaguada. Gravid, who sought to merge Jedi principles with his Sith doctrines, was attempting to destroy any Sith relics, epics and holocrons that conveyed Sith teachings around the year of 533 BBY. Darth Geen was originally a Twi'lek female who served as an apprentice to Darth Gravid, Dark Lord of the Sith, as member of the dreaded Order of the Evil Sith Lords. Nonetheless, Gravid seriously damaged Geen during the struggle, forcing her to wear prosthesis. She later adopted a pupil of her own, carrying on Darth Bane's legacy. During her time as Gravid's apprentice, Geen assisted her Sith Master in the construction of a stronghold on a planet named Yaguada. She demonstrated entire loyalty to the evil side of the Force as well as the Sith Order after uncovering Darth Gravid's intention to undermine the Sith teachings by battling and slaying her master, albeit being badly hurt in their combat. Geen's master, on the other hand, had started to lose his sanity as he sought to incorporate Jedi principles such as kindness and empathy within his Sith teachings. She also survived the fight with the powerful Gravid, although she was severely damaged and forced to wear prosthesis as a result. Darth Plagueis claimed that the Twi'lek's Force strength was not hampered by her cybernetics. Darth Geen was Force sensitive and powerful enough to breach her master's Force shields around his stronghold. Her persona was developed to explain part of the history that carried the dreaded order of the other Sith Lords. Darth Geen debuted in James Luceno's 2012 novel Darth Plagueis. Lady Lumia. Lumia is originally the Dark Lady who was a Sith, and she is responsible for enticing Jacen Solo towards the evil side. Also known as Shira Ilan Kola Bri, she was raised on the planet named Coruscant and reared on a Palpatine estate. She stayed at the Imperial Palace as an adolescent as a member of the Commission for the Preservation of the New Order's Adolescent Indoctrination Program. Shira came to understand about and embrace the New World Order of the Galactic Empire. Shira started her duty to the Empire as an aviator in the flight academy named Coruscant Pilot Institute, where she met Myret Davani. Shira relocated to the famed Academy of Corrida to continue her training 6 months just after the Battle of Yavin. In her final year. Davani was her housemate there, and they shared a lot of the exact same training. Bree, in conjunction with her tactical and pilot training, became Darth Vader's student in the use of the Force. He had placed her in expedited study for Imperial intelligence upon seeing her potential. She was also trained in other types of warfare, notably Nogri Stava and Echanti. Shira also had several biochemical changes to her body's natural defenses, allowing her fast recovery and a heightened pain threshold. Shira received her earliest taste of devastation at the Academy, where she was given free rein to put her abilities to the test. Vader arranged for Shira to go on a single intelligence operation after she graduated with honors from the Academy. She distinguished herself on the operation, rising to the position of Major inside the Imperial Special Forces. Vader then dispatched her to penetrate the Rebel Alliance and then assassinate Luke Skywalker. To construct a backstory for her, Imperial soldiers demolished the town Kinshasa on the planet Shelley Vane. Shira Bree, the shorter form of her name, served as her alias. She easily infiltrated the organization by masquerading as a Shelley Vane refugee. Bree would join Corwin Shelvey, Kyle Katarn, and Erling Treadway while on a journey to Drinbar 4 to deactivate the laser cannon of Death Star, which was the second one while working with the rebels. Although Bree turned against her companions and attempted to destroy their efforts alongside Darth Vader, the operation was successful. She-Ra then was deployed to the Rogue Squadron and stationed at Arbra's Haven base. Her beauty and brains made her a famous Alliance member. She befriended Luke Skywalker and made it clear that she intended them to be much more than just colleagues. Luke seemed to be interested in pursuing a romance with her as well. Supreme Leader Snoke. One of the key enemies of the Star Wars film franchise is Supreme Leader Snoke. Snoke is officially the Supreme Leader who is the head of the First Order. He is also Kylo Ren's instructor until the developments of the Star Wars movie The Last Jedi, during which he is deceived by his pupil, who kills his own master in order to spare Rey's life. Snoke is revealed in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker to be an artificial human-like alien formed by the Sith Eternal, and the revived Sheev Palpatine as part of his scheme to reclaim power and seek retribution on the Skywalkers, thus attempting to create Snoke to try to woo Ben Solo onto the evil side and govern the First Order in his place, while the Sith Eternal's vessels, the Final Order, is just being built on Exegol. Sheev Palpatine, as well as the Sith cultists, dabbled in Darkside research and genetic meddling on the covert Sith world of Exegol, unbeknownst to anyone. Several genetic clones were made and stored in a vat of nutritive fluid on the world within the Sith Citadel, where his creator later dwelt. Darth Vader once came to Exegol and saw these duplicates when they were still in their tanks. Snoke was formed as a partially constructed Strand-cast clone as a result of these experiments shortly after Palpatine's death at the Battle of Endor. Although he was a puppet, Snoke had free agency and was adept in autonomous thought, with the Emperor manipulating and orchestrating just a handful of his acts and intentions without his awareness. But in the end, he was oblivious of his actual character. Palpatine's cloned body was fragile and too weak to hold him owing to his strength after his resurrection, so he sought for another body to utilize as his vessel. He regarded Snoke's body unfit to host his spirit, but he recognized other applications for Snoke, deeming his innate force sensitivity as being able to provide him the capacity to still build a strong puppet. He was chosen to be Palpatine's power proxy, the one who would establish and control the First Order as the latter recovered inside the unknown regions, established his brand new Sith Empire, and discovered a brand new receptacle for his spirit.
To see what you're made of, kid.
Aurra Sing. Aurra Sing in Star Wars canon is a female human bounty hunter well known for training Boba Fett, who was one of the most formidable bounty hunters in the galaxy. Aurra Sing was a dreaded bounty hunter, famed for her chalk-white complexion and built-in comlink antenna. She was a trained assassin and skilled shooter who would work for anybody who paid her. Following Jango Fett's death, Aurra taught Boba Fett and trained him in the art of being a bounty hunter, giving him the skills as well as the ruthlessness that he would require to pursue his lethal vocation. In the year 0, Aurra was present at the Boonta Eve Classic, when his father was assassinated by Mace Windu at the time of the Clone Wars. She subsequently assisted in the training of Boba Fett. Aurra is a female bounty hunter of pale white human origin. Her hair is mostly shaved, with a huge ponytail at the back. Aurra Sing had become a recognized acquaintance of other prominent scum, including bounty hunters Jango Fett, Cad Bane, Boba Fett, and Bosk, as well as a criminal and scam artist Honda Onaka, as well as the wicked Darth Maul throughout the years. She served with Count Dooku as well as the Separatists during the Clone Wars. Singh devoted her formative life to being a Jedi Padawan, despite being force-sensitive and being born from a one-night affair. However, because of her more aggressive tendency and personal difficulties with identification, she was transferred from teacher to master until she was eventually given over to the most notorious of the Jedi Order, who was the infamous Dark Woman. Singh was kidnapped early in her training, and her abductor persuaded the then young Singh that her teacher had purposefully abandoned her. Singh accepted the lie gladly after fighting for so many years, treated as an outcast wherever she went, renouncing the Jedi path except for her lightsaber. She'd have a lot of use for her sword from then on, chasing down those who avoided her and taking on any task that required her to battle Jedi. Singh is notable in that, unlike so many other Star Wars antagonists, she earned her legendary gear. Her first appearance finds her speaking about how now she's struggling to survive, lacking all but the bare necessities. Her primary weapon was a primitive slug thrower that fired actual projectiles instead of blaster bolts. She didn't, however, rely solely on deception, instead demanding a game of skill with her victim. Singh was never satisfied with just sitting back and sniping. Darth Cognus, Huntress. Darth Cognus, sometimes known by the name the Huntress, was a Sith lady and an Iktotchi woman with the ability of foresight. During the Reformed Order, she held the position of Dark Lord and was Darth Millennial's tutor. Cognus was incensed by her disciples' opinions, which violated Darth Bane's rules, and she eliminated him. Millennial eventually established the Order of the Prophets, who were a part of the Darkside. For several years, prior to 980 BBY, she operated as a mercenary, dubbed Hunter or Huntress. She was recognized as a professional and she liked bloodshed. Princess Doan Sera recruited her to apprehend Darth Bane. Huntress fulfilled the mission because of her inherent ability of foresight, but afterwards pledged loyalty to Bane and followed him to Ambria. From there, Bane dispatched a note to Zana, a previous student who had attempted to assassinate him and had come in for the last confrontation between the instructor and the pupil. Darth Cognus became the Huntress's new name in Ambria. When Zana came, Cognus declared her devotion to the victor. During a grueling but brief struggle, Darth Bane attempted to transplant his essence inside the body of his pupil, causing his body to vanish and Zana to become Cognus's instructor. However, following the combat, the latter suffered spasms in her left hand while seeing Darth Bane, leading to the theory that a portion of Bane lingered in her body. Cognus was a stunning, unconventional lady with an intricate tattoo on her bottom lip. During the struggle with the Dark Jedi Seth Hart, he severed a substantial chunk of her horn on the left side, although the horn subsequently mended itself. The word Cognus has originated from the Latin term cognitio, which means know. Savage Oppress. Savage is a powerful, kind-hearted guy who lives on Dathomir. Former Sith trainee, assassin, Night Sister, and all-round badass appears in his community, demanding her right to mate with the strongest guy. Savage, his brother who is named Feral, and the rest of the young men fight in a tournament that leaves just the two brothers alive, with Feral living only due to the fact that Savage defended him. Ventress returns Savage to the powerful Night Sisters, her coven of skilled Force wielders, to corrupt him. Savage was a huge, powerful youth to start with. However, the Night Sisters perform a ceremony to infuse him and make him one with the Force, and turn him into a gigantic beast worthy of his name. Mother Talzin, their commander, proposes Savage to the Sith Lord named Count Dooku as a brand new pupil. However, Savage is intended to be their vengeance against Dooku for abandoning Ventress. So we can see straight away why Savage Oppress is indeed a sad figure. A nice man snatched from his family and corrupted into something wicked. Lured by the terrible force coursing through his blood, he kills his own sibling and then embarks on a road of deception. Savage Oppress assists Count Dooku with merciless effectiveness, capturing the focus of the Jedi through his lethal twin lightsaber assaults. Even Dooku finds Oppress's warrior methods too much at times, like the time when he kills the monarch of Toydaria, when his mission was actually to catch him. Dooku, on the other hand, finds potential in him and trains him with cruel Sith methods like Force Lightning. Asajj Ventress soon slips on board Dooku's ship and instructs Savage to assist her in exacting revenge on her old mentor. However, Savage demurs, unwilling to be used as a pawn by anybody, leading to a spectacular twist in which Count Dooku flees, Ventress departs, and Savage Oppress goes back to Dathomir. Darth Maul still seems to be alive, but Savage Oppress sees him, crazed and riding on the backs of mechanical spiders. Oppress returns his missing sibling to Mother Talzin, after which he recovers his sanity and is also given new legs. With his consciousness restored, Maul seeks vengeance on those who have mistreated him, beginning with a Jedi Master named Obi-Wan Kenobi. The siblings ensure that news reaches Kenobi by violently destroying an isolated colony, causing him to retaliate. Savage was a pretty good guy who was ruined by power, revenge, and the dark side, and he was used by everyone who was meant to protect him. Another Star Wars figure who so effectively portrays the picture of fallen promise. The vision of what could have been would be difficult to find. Darth Tyranid, aka Count Dooku. Some canon storylines have gone into detail concerning Dooku's history. He was originally a rich youngster in the world of Serrano, who opted to quit his family in order to enlist in the Jedi Order. Dooku develops a haughty feeling of entitlement as a result of this. He chides the Jedi Council over their inactivity and believes he can be both a policymaker and a Force Master. What Dooku doesn't comprehend is that having influence over both government and the military would be too much for just one person to handle. Maybe this is why he is drawn to Palpatine's doctrines in the first place. Count Dooku was first brought into Star Wars lore in Attack of the Clones, and his tale has been since explored in a number of mediums, most notably in Cavan Scott's work Dooku, Jedi Lost. All the Jedi in Attack of the Clones refer to him by the name Count Dooku. Jango Fett states that he was chosen by a man named Tyrannus to function as the model for the clone army of the Galactic Republic. Darth Tyrannus was the designation given to Dooku by his Sith Lord, Dark Sidious. Sith have both their birth name and the title given to them because of their lord. Dooku is commonly referred to as Count by the Jedi, since it is the moniker they used to identify him even before he succumbed to the Force's dark side. And that is why, despite having both titles, Dooku is usually referred to as a Count in the Star Wars universe. Dooku had previously been a Jedi, even a Padawan to Yoda, before joining up with Dark Sidious, seeking to recruit new planetary systems for separatists to aid his master's cause. Sidious may have granted Dooku the designation of Darth Tyrannus. However, the Jedi Order recognized him as Count Dooku and preferred not to indulge his position as a Sith, so they continued to refer to him as such. Count Dooku trained numerous Sith and Jedi over his existence, and his different identities would have been utilized in accordance with who was talking to him. Darth Nox. Darth Nox, also known as Scalig and Rage, is one of the primary characters in Star Wars. Nox was a Sith Dark Lord who fought the Sith Empire at the time of the Galactic War in the Cold War. Nox intended to restore the Scalig dynasty to grandeur as the successor of the old Sith Lord Aloysius Scalig. He is also among the Empire's Fury's 4 members. Darth Nox, who was manipulative, crafty and ambitious, used betrayal to shatter both allies and adversaries. He successfully duped Ashara Zavros into accessing a Sith holocron, thus initiating her transformation into a Sith trainee. Nox could combine lightsaber abilities with Darkside expertise, enabling force bolts to be funneled via Calig's searing lightsaber. Darth Nox took immense joy in the sensation of deceit throughout their diplomatic maneuverings and the misery of others, and would frequently torture subordinates and opponents for mere entertainment. Darth Nox was extremely skilled in the inherent gift of Sith sorcery, notably the ancient unknown Force Walk technique to draw energy from several Sith souls in order to exponentially amplify their strength in the evil side. Darth Nox was capable of channeling the Force and manipulating it to fit a variety of goals, including subjugating, stunning, or murdering adversaries. When Zalek informed Nox about his culture, Nox expressed curiosity and inquired about it. Nox's evil side strength was sufficient to fully overcome a Dark Council representative of Darth Thanaton's quality. Telekinesis was one among the youthful Sith's abilities, as demonstrated when Nox hurled Thanaton across the Dark Council room. Despite being corrupted, Darth Nox exhibited respect for some individuals and civilizations, including their pupils Zalek and Kadish. Nox was also an incredibly skilled manipulator of Force lightning. The Sith Lord electrocuted anyone who dared to oppose him, and he also executed a representative of Nox's reformed cult involving the Screaming Blade for simply contacting the Sith Lord. The young Sith was a skilled lightsaber duelist, capable of fighting with either a normal or a double-edged lightsaber.
This is true. The game is renewed.
Darth Vowron. Darth Vowron in Star Wars canon is a pureblood male Sith Dark Lord of the Sith Confederacy, who now serves as the commander of the Pyramid of Logistics and Production on the Dark Council. Darth Vowron, who held knowledge of Sith rites, was apparently schooled as a Sith investigator on the sacred world of Korriban, or the Empire's headquarters of Dormund Kass. He was a member of the governing Dark Council before the Great Galactic War. Generations later, Vowron was then one of the Council's longest serving members, and he had taken on an apprentice, a human male named Ket. At the time of the Star Wars Cold War, Ket would commission the creation of a gigantic statue of his lord in order to earn his favor. However, one of Vowron's enemies, Darth Baras, staged a slave insurrection against the statue's construction. The construction would be known by the name the Unfinished Colossus. The astute Baras ensured that his links to the slave insurrection were untraceable, thus disabling Vowron from taking any action against him. Darth Baras had assumed his master Darth Vengean's Dark Council seat immediately after the latter's death, some 2 years after the slave insurrection. Much to Vowron's chagrin, his competitor launched a far more aggressive grab for power. Baras declared himself as the voice of the Emperor and the channel for the Ultimate Master's utterances. Despite the fact that many of his peers knew that it was untrue, Vowron publicly opposed Baras. Vowron built his center of command inside a Republic military installation after discovering a major element of Darth Baras's political base on Corellia, using agents posing as Republic officials. Despite his attempts, Darth Baras dispatched many assassins to assassinate the pureblood Sith. Luckily for Vowron, Baras's old student, now known as the Emperor's Wrath, eliminated each assassin with the help of the Emperor's hand. Certain of the Wrath's real loyalty, he diverged his actual intentions, and the duo quickly rallied to liberate a Darkside apparition whose foresight and intelligence enabled Baras to emerge as the mysterious Emperor's voice. Darth Thanaton, born Teneb Kel, was originally a human male and also a Dark Lord of the Sith that participated in the Cold War, the Great Galactic War, and even in the Second Great Galactic War. As a trainee, he learnt the secrets of the Sith from Lord Califo and also was usually followed by a young Abyssin slave called Maggot. Following the imprisonment of Lord Califo, the young Kel was dispatched on a perilous expedition by the powerful Dark Council to track down the Emperor's treacherous pupil, Cresh. On the way, he had a Force glimpse in which he perceived himself as a great Sith Lord titled Darth Thanaton. He'd even discovered that Cresh was really a child of the Emperor, one of several infiltrators working for the Dark Lord. He had followed Cresh all of the way to the land of Korriban and killed her. Cal came to the Dark Council after the mission's completion and asked that he be awarded the position of Dark Lord of the Sith and dubbed what he had seen in his vision. The Dark Council fulfilled his desire, and Darth Thanaton had become a member of the cabinet, a distinction he maintained for over 4 decades before he was vanquished on the ground of the council rooms on Korriban by his strong opponent, the future Darth Nox. Darth Mortis, one of his peers and a councillor, then killed him on the spot. Darth Momin. Momin's birth occurs at the time of the 100-Year Darkness. The potential Sith Lord dabbled with the strength of the Force using only his thoughts. When he was younger, he dismembered the household radar cat and fashioned it into his first artwork, which his mother spotted when searching for the beast. Momin developed additional sculptures as his Force talents improved. However, he was unable to impress the other Sith due to his work. They'd have terrified scowls on their faces. He was imprisoned for his efforts, although only for a short time. Momin's name spread throughout space despite his captivity. When Shah, a Sith lady, heard the name, she decided to take things in her hands and deal with them herself. Shah set Momin free and appointed him her apprentice. Momin had a greater understanding of himself under her teaching. Momin, like all of the Sith who came after him, despised the job of apprentice and killed Shah. Momin, unlike his Sith predecessors, did not take on a pupil. Instead, he developed art that he thought was good enough to become a Darkside creature. Momin created an engine potent enough to destroy a city after inheriting various resources from his master. Momin devised plans to harness the Force to fuel his weapon with the assistance of desperate acolytes. By doing so, the technology would slow reality to the point that the faces of people of Momin's selected planets would be permanently frozen in dread. The Jedi interrupted before Momin could fulfill his plot. The Force's light side caused him to lose focus. The diversion caused the renegade to lose his grip on the weapon, causing him to be destroyed, leaving just his mask and consciousness imprisoned within. Momin's techniques were considered excessive by his fellow Sith. He had become a heretic in their eyes. No Sith followed his lead of being forbidden and hidden away. Momin's name became a legend, and no trace of him could be found in any Jedi or Sith holocron. His sculptures were misplaced or forgotten. Darth Vader discovered the mask decades later in 19 BBY during the Jedi Purge. Vader, who spearheaded the attack on the Jedi Temple, accidentally discovered the mask's whereabouts. Darth Talon. Darth Talon is one of the major female Sith Lords most people have never even heard of, despite her fandom among Star Wars fans. Darth Talon is yet to make an appearance in any prominent big or small screen production. However, given the number of Easter eggs appearing in current Star Wars films, fans are optimistic that the tide is turning in their favor. In the meanwhile, here's everything you'll need to know about Darth Talon, the ruthless female Sith. Talon grew up on the evil planet Korriban and trained there in all things Sith. Her assassin attitude, aptitude for murder, and force power are shaped by the Sith Academy. Darth Krayt invites Darth Talon within his most valued circle after noticing her prowess while using the Force and unshakable commitment to him. Her first major assignment begins when she goes out to seek the royal princess of the world that she, as well as Darth Krayt troops, have recently seized. But just as Talon is ready to kidnap the princess, she is stopped by her eventual pupil and partner, Cade Skywalker. Darth Krayt then orders her to find Cade and use force powers, assuming Cade is of Skywalker ancestry. Darth Talon kidnaps Cade, and she, along with Darth Krayt, plan to entice him to the evil side. Talon then becomes Cade's Sith Lord and teaches him all the teachings of the power of the Darkside and the new Sith Order. However, it is revealed that Talon is still not confident Cade will really ever be Sith. Several showdowns and duels ensue between Cade and Talon, providing excellent literary parallels to previous Star Wars master and pupil feuds. Talon subsequently resumes her path as Krayt's right-hand servant, assisting him in his recovery from death and bringing about a further new order of faithful Sith, the Sith Troopers. Her storyline concludes with Cade Skywalker facing Darth Krayt in the ultimate battle of Coruscant. Darth Malak. Darth Malak was originally a human male who ruled as a Sith Dark Lord at the time of the Civil War of the Jedis. Alec was raised on the planet of Kilai, which was in the Outer Rim territories prior to becoming a Sith Lord. When the Mandalorians invaded his homeworld, he fled and ran to the Great Galactic Republic, where immigration records give him the name of his hometown as his last name. He was schooled in the teachings of the powerful Force by members of the Jedi Order and was dubbed Squint by his other Jedi before he became a Jedi Knight. At the time of the Mandalorian Wars, Revan, Alec, his best friend and fellow Jedi Knight, and his Jedi group defied the Jedi Council and supported the Republic's military effort by conducting scouting missions inside the Outer Rim. He met a Jedi Padawan who was named Zane Carrick, and after adopting the alias Malak to dodge a court order by the Council to arrest him, aided Carrick in fighting the shadowy Jedi Covenant. Malak rose through the ranks of the military, earning a reputation as a fearless warrior who recklessly plunged into danger. Revan and Malak eventually destroyed the Mandalorians during the final battle of the war at Malachor 5 and chased the remaining Mandalorians further into lands of the unknown regions. The two Jedi, however, met the Sith Lord of the rebuilt ancient ruins of the Sith Empire and surrendered to the darkness of the Force under his instruction, becoming Sith Lords. The Sith Emperor sent the freshly renamed Darth Revan and Darth Malak on a mission to uncover the Star Forge, an old Rakatan space station that would aid in the destruction of the Jedi Order as well as the Republic. Malak assisted Revan in tracking down all of the star maps that directed them to the Star Forge, and after discovering the weapon of mass destruction above Rakata Prime, Revan took on the title of Dark Lord of the Sith, while Malak served as his Sith apprentice. A year after their absence from recognized Republic territory, the two formed their very own Sith Empire, came back to the Republic and launched an attack, aiming to destroy the alleged tyranny of the Jedi Order. Darth Tenebrous, also known as Ruges Gnome in his public image, was originally a male Sith Lord who had descended from Darth Bane, the founder of the iconic Sith Rule of Two. He was a starship designer who was well known across the cosmos, being one of the most prominent designers to ever exist. Darth Plagueis and Darth Venomous were his apprentices, and one of them went on to mentor Darth Sidious. Darth Tenebrous was preoccupied with altering the future to suit his own purposes while he was Darth Tenebrous. He also possessed a scientific mind and an exceptional brain. Ruges Gnome was given the moniker Darth Tenebrous after he was chosen as a Sith trainee by his teacher, a Twi'lek. He was genuinely dedicated to the grand plan made by the Sith along with his master upon being one of the powers of the dark side. He built his crimson-bladed lightsaber shortly after meeting his master. He would then utilize this lightsaber to refine or duel with his newly discovered lightsaber talents. At some time, he and his master developed a plot to break the Jedi's link to the Force. Despite their efforts, the project failed, and they had to start over. Tenebrous began to perceive the Force's powerful dark side as a source of energy that could be used to the user's own free will, rather than as a magical evil energy. When he realized his mentor was no longer useful to him, he murdered him. Darth Tenebrous was still known across the galaxy by the name Rugus Gnome, the famed starship designer. Despite his prominence, he kept the fact that he was a Sith Lord hidden. When he began looking for a Sith trainee, by chance he came upon a lady called Car Damask, who worked for the famed intergalactic banking clan. He duped her into meeting the person she fell madly in love with. He was confident their child would excel in the Force. Tenebrous came to Megiddo to persuade the family to hand over the boy when he was 5 years old. He was victorious in his effort and called his new apprentice Dark Plagueis.
Darth Mar, you have traitors in your fleet, scores of them.
Darth Mar. Darth Mar, one of the Dark Council's longest-serving members, is a formidable fighter and staunch supporter of the Sith Code. During the initial periods of the destructive Great Galactic War, he conquered planet after planet for the rising Empire and developed a reputation for actively spearheading attacks against the Republic resistance. However, as the Empire's strength grew and the battle dragged on, Mar found himself with fewer opportunities to personally join in the fray, which irritated the Sith Lord. Mar has assumed the unofficial leadership of the Dark Council upon the death of Darth Malgus. Disgusted by the Sith's infighting, he has gone to great measures to encourage pragmatism, even forming a short partnership with a powerful Republic to destroy Revan on Yavin 4. While a few of the council members might disagree with Mar's approach, there is little question that the Empire's long-term interests are his first concern. Darth Mar was undoubtedly a formidable Sith Lord. He did not appear to be on the same level as Revan, Valkorion, and others, but once the Sith left their league, he was unquestionably the most powerful individual who was not far off their power level. His strength lay in raw and direct battle. Mar, despite the fact that his body and mind had perished, turned into a Force ghost in order to defend the Sith Empire. Several years later, his soul spoke with Satele Shan when they felt Valkorion's presence. Later, they both headed to Odyssey, the command center of the powerful Outlanders Alliance, a coalition of Republic and Empire components allied against the strength of the Eternal Empire. Though Satele respected their dedication, Mar grieved the fact that many would perish in the next battle. Mar accompanied Satele Shan through her banishment on Odyssey as a Force ghost. Darth Mar was indeed a human man who was legendary for never exposing his actual identity. The Dark Lord was always wrapped in his customized war armor. Darth Baras. Darth Baras was a human and a Sith Master who was also Dark Lord of the Sith and a representative of the Dark Council who was sent to Alderaan in the weeks leading up to the conclusion of the famed Great Galactic War to finalize the Treaty of Coruscant. Following the signing of the treaty, he was caught in a scheme to derail every peace he had broken. Baras cleared his identity and saved the pact by assisting in the defeat of the genuine conspirator, a showdown that supposedly occurred in the crystals on the planet of Dantooine. Baras was the Sith warrior's tutor, who would eventually be his undoing. Darth Baras may very well have looked down upon all Sith Academy overseers when he conducted the tests to the bands of acolytes, from whom he would pick one apprentice. Any effort to challenge his acolyte training judgments was greeted with a harsh death. Darth Baras was charged with coming to Alderaan and negotiating with Galactic Republic representatives in order to conclude a deal that would bring a conclusion to the seemingly never-ending Great Galactic War. Shortly after the pact was signed, a series of strikes on both Korriban and Coruscant jeopardized the newly formed peace. Lord Baras was named as one of the suspected perpetrators of these attacks. Darth Angral, however, had been identified as the individual responsible by Baras's own investigations. The two Sith Lords encountered each other on the lands of Korriban, only to discover that a third party was setting them against one another in an attempt to destroy the peace. Barriss was subsequently removed from the prestigious Dark Council by being given the options to be slain, expelled or jailed, any path the warrior chose, and the warrior who finally defeated him was acknowledged as the Emperor's Wrath, getting bows from every member of the council. Darth Vectivus. Darth Vectivus was a human man who worked as the manager of the remote Jonex Mine, 811B space mining colony inside the MZX32905 star cluster near the planet named Bimiel before becoming a Sith. He closed down the Enterprise when the pool of Darkside energies over which the settlement was located began to negatively impact his staff. He was a wise and ethical businessman. Because of his personal force sensitivity, he proceeded to investigate and tinker with the enigmatic phenomenon, developing a force method that entailed the generation of Darkside-empowered phantoms. He finally abandoned the mining operation and departed the habitat in pursuit of the Sith. His search was finally productive, and following completion of his training, he rose to dominance as Darth Vectivus, also known as the Dark Lord of the Sith. He took part in Banite Sith when under the famed rule of two, an apprentice and a master. Though a supporter of the Force's dark side, Darth Vectivus's discipline and pre-existing code of ethics enabled him to stay balanced and fair without succumbing to the temptation of power that afflicted a large number of Sith Lords who came before him. He ultimately went back to his home, the Mine, and had a prosperous life in the company of loved ones and acquaintances alike. Vectivus died physically millennia before 40 ABY. Darth Gravid. The Sith's very nature renders them naturally hostile to the good side of the Force and towards Jedi in particular. Darth Gravid, on the other hand, was a world apart in many ways. He was one of the very few Sith Lords who genuinely respected his Jedi opponents. Gravid was a formidable Sith Lord committed to his purpose, but he also feared that the Order's rigid dedication to the evil side would prove its ruin in the end. As a result, he attempted to merge light side principles into Sith theology, which eventually drove him to complete insanity. To rescue the Sith from itself, he resolved to hide all Sith expertise and obliterate its relics and historical archives. Gravid's toll on the Sith Order seemed unfathomable. Darth Gravid was indeed a famous Sith who served with his pupil Darth Geen. Gravid started researching the Jedi to understand more about his adversary, but the more he studied, the more he realized that the light side's ideas might be incorporated into Sith tradition to strengthen it. Over time, he discovered the Sith methods to be illogical and contradictory, and as a result, he deleted innumerable dark side files, prompting Geen to murder him. Dark Plagueis, the eponymous Sith Lord, told Darth Sidious in the novel that Gravid's actions put back his aspirations for galactic domination by centuries. Even though Gravid began as a Sith, he has wrought more damage upon the dark side than virtually any Jedi. Starkiller. Starkiller, whose birth name is Galen Marek, with an alias known as The Apprentice, is the completely fictitious main character of the Star Wars game named The Force Unleashed and other literary works, part of the currently non-canonical Star Wars extended universe. However, his very first cameo was as a guest character in the combat video game Soul Calibur 4, along with Yoda and Darth Vader. Galen Marek was conceived as the child of a renegade Jedi in the early rule of the powerful Galactic Empire in the fictitious Star Wars universe. When his father is apprehended and executed by the wicked Darth Vader as a part of the Republic's Great Jedi Purge, the latter finds Galen and, seeing his promise as a great Force user, raises and trains him as a secret pupil, giving him the nickname Starkiller. Years later, Vader employs Starkiller as his own assassin, dispatching him on assignments to help both the Empire and his own intentions to depose Palpatine. When Starkiller's usefulness to Vader has expired, he is deceived and left for himself, driving him to transform into a Grey Jedi and become a part of the newly established Rebel Alliance. He had a light complexion, brown hair and brown eyes. Out of a desire for revenge following his father's murder, he stood before Darth Vader as a kid, holding the Sith Lord's same lightsaber against him. This yearning was Marek's first foray into the evil side, and Vader sensed it in him. Despite his thirst for revenge, he had not yet gone over to the dark side fully, having been shocked by Vader's slaughter of the stormtroopers. All of these terrible occurrences caused Marek to bury all of his memories of childhood and forget his real name, despite the fact that his first foray into the dark side became a permanent feature of his psyche for the rest of his life. Darth Nihil. Darth Nihil was canonically a Nagai Sith, male lord, who served in the Galactic Empire under Darth Krayt during the Sith Imperial War, as well as the Second Great Imperial Civil War. Darth Krayt enlisted Nihil, the renowned Nagai warlord, inside the One Sith and initially appointed him his personal fist or military commander. This shifted after Krayt's hand, or the Enforcer, passed away, and Nihil was appointed to the role as a consequence in the year 130 ABY. Nihil's first mission was to lead an attack on the Jedi Praxium at the location of Ossus, where he murdered a Jedi Master named Col Skywalker, and fatally injured a Zabrak Master who was Wolf Sazen. Over the following 7 years, Nihil served as Krayt's chief enforcer throughout the cosmos, till the Dark Lord elevated another Sith named Dark Talon, also to serve as Hand. Talon was dispatched to abduct Fel's daughter, who was named Marasiya, and Nihil was assigned to support her during the Vendaxa fight between the Fel, Sith, Imperial Knights, as well as the Jedi who helped them. Cade Skywalker, the bounty hunter, was one of those who assisted Fel and attacked Nihil during the combat on Vendaxa, aiming to assassinate the Sith Lord in retaliation for his father's murder. Though Nihil did not beat Skywalker, he subsequently caught the hitman when Skywalker penetrated the mysterious Temple of the Sith to liberate the Botham Jedi Knight who was named Hosk Trylis. Darth Nihil, being a Sith, was familiar with rudimentary Force skills like telekinesis. In a fight on Vendaxa, he used Force pull and push against Jaria Sin. Nihil also possessed the Sith ability Force Lightning, which he used to assassinate Col Skywalker on the land of Ossus. These powers, paired with Nihil's use of a long-handled lightsaber, demonstrated his proficiency as a master swordsman. He was able to murder a descendant of the Skywalker dynasty, Jedi Master named Col Skywalker, and vanquish Wolf Sazen, also a Jedi Master, because of this. Another power Nihil possessed was the Force Choke that he employed to restrain and abduct Cade Skywalker when he penetrated the Dark Temple of the Sith. Darth Millennial. Darth Millennial was originally a three-eyed mutated Sith Lord who served as Darth Cognus's pupil. Millennium, an heir to Darth Bane's bloodline and a highly powerful evil side of the mythical force, has the capacity to look into the future. Millennial often argued with his lord Darth Cognus on a variety of issues. This eventually led him to grow disenchanted with Darth Bane's famed Rule of Two, and he subsequently adopted his own views on Darkside practice, eventually forming his own church, which might become the evil prophets of the Force's dark side. He declared himself a destined prophet of the Force, and he drew a large number of disciples. Those who did not recognize or have faith in his new religion were dubbed heretics and executed, which may be deemed hypocrisy in and of itself, considering Darth Millennial was himself a traitor for moving away from the orthodox Sith order. Millennial's religion survived for several years after his death, ultimately becoming the official religion of Emperor Palpatine, who was also known by the name Sith Lord Darth Sidious, and the Galactic Empire, with Kadan regarded as the grand prophet of the powerful dark side. Darth Caedus. Born as Jacen Solo, the son of Leia Organa Solo and Han Solo, he was a prominent Jedi Knight who was instrumental in destroying the Yuzhan Vong while safeguarding the universe during the Yuzhan Vong War. Darth Caedus, Darth Vader's grandson, was a Sith Lord who rebelled against his friends and family, betraying his old beliefs, and led the Galactic Alliance he had supported into a tyrannical reign as he sought to restore peace and security to a fragmented galaxy. Solo's passion to preserve the galaxy and his increased readiness to incur any sacrifice in that cause assisted his downfall to the Sith. Jacen Solo, born in the year 9 ABY, spent much of his childhood as the focus of multiple kidnapping plans and scams aimed at his renowned parents. He, along with his twin sister Jaina, started attending the Jedi Praxium at the location of the Yavin 4 when they were 13, and where their relative Luke Skywalker trained them in the secrets of the Force. He made numerous acquaintances there, including the Hapan princess named Tenel Khajo, towards whom he developed a great attraction. During his training, he and his allies foiled multiple schemes against the New Republic, which led to him and his little brother Anakin being assigned to Skywalker in the year 24 ABY. With the onset of the Yuuzhan Vong War, Solo, a philosopher who grappled with the concept of using violence to combat violence, experienced a psychological crisis. He preferred not to serve on the front, but felt compelled to join the strike force formed to remove the Voxan monarch at Mirkur. Here, Anakin Solo was murdered and Jacen Solo took over as squad leader, murdering the Queen and putting a stop to the Voxan menace before being kidnapped by the wicked Yuuzhan Vong. Jacen Solo was already a galactic political figure before he was born.
My dear Obi-Wan, I've missed you.
Asajj Ventress. Few figures in the Star Wars show The Clone War has as dramatic a life as Asajj Ventress. Asajj was raised on the planet of Dathomir to a Night Sister, an evil side tribe that created magic by delving into the dark elements that surrounded their home. Asajj was handed to the rogue Halstead, a descendant of the hyper-intelligent Syntene race, at an early age to defend her coven. In the months that followed, she worked as his servant on the planet of Ratatak, until Halstead was murdered by the WK pirates, and this led to Asajj being discovered by a Jedi Knight called Kai Narek. Narek then became her mentor, training Asajj how to use the powers of the light side of the mythical force to protect Ratatak's citizens from foreign forces. Tragically, Narek was murdered in a pirate fight 10 years later, forcing Asajj to follow her darker instincts and seize leadership of Ratatak for her own gain. This led to her being found by Count Dooku, a former Jedi turned Sith Lord who taught her the teachings of the dark side and proceeded to make her his apprentice. Asajj was later troubled by a phantom apparition of Narek while performing out an assignment for Dooku, as described in the 2019 book named Dooku, Jedi Lost. However, Asajj gradually rejected Narek's pleadings for her to go back to the light until she completely embraced the evils of the dark side. After the original plans for the Clone Wars' last 2 seasons were discarded, Asajj's journey ended in the 2015 segment named Dark Disciple, which was a Clone Wars novel. In the novel, Asajj meets and develops a relationship with a man named Quinlan Vos, who is a Jedi working as a hitman as part of a plan to assassinate Dooku and bring the Clone Wars to a conclusion. However, their following efforts to murder Dooku fail, as Asajj eventually gives her life to spare Vos from being murdered by her old master. Nonetheless, the powerful Jedi High Council honors her sacrifice, and she is put to sleep in her clan's hometown of Dathomir. Darth Venomous. Darth Venomous was originally a Sith apprentice of Darth Tenebrous, who was tutored in violation of the infamous Rule of Two. Tenebrous was also tutoring Plagueis, and notwithstanding Venomous's official title of Darth, it was not properly conferred upon him. Darth Tenebrous was supposed to have discovered Venomous and chosen him as an apprentice, but Plagueis suspected the two were linked, maybe as Tenebrous's offspring. He was kept hidden from Plagueis, but when Plagueis discovered this information about Venomous, he questioned if Venomous had been taught as a real Sith. Venomous impersonated a doctor and used false information about his house and profession to liberate Nat Lair, a Nautolian, around the year 67 BBY. In 70 BBY, he had spent 3 years at the shady Bedlam Institution, which was for the criminally demented. Venomous and he challenged Nat to exterminate the inhabitants of a few swamp houses nearby. Plagueis, who had also slain Tenebrous, uncovered Venomous's database of Force-sensitive individuals to be possible apprentices after Tenebrous's demise on Bar Demnik. There was a Shiaido changeling and an Itachi prophet in addition to Nat Lair. Before pursuing his own apprentice, Venomous began striving to fulfill his ex-master's final request. He took leave of Nat on Abraxin and went in search of Plagueis. Venomous travelled to Sojourn, which was a moon controlled by Plagueis, and then was defeated in a duel. He was compelled to consume a coma bloom, which sent him into oblivion. Plagueis, as well as his droid, which was called 11-4D, kept Venomous living so that his midi-chlorians could be tested and studied. Venomous was permitted to die in 42 BBY, having served his purpose. Plagueis was subsequently revived and repeatedly murdered Venomous in the company of Darth Sidious, as well as the robot 11-4D. Conclusion. Star Wars reminds us that everything has a balance. There is a wicked act of malice for every genuine act of kindness. As a result, for every Jedi charged with preserving the galaxy, there exists a Sith bent on conquering it. The Sith Lords always are a generator of dread and fascination for both the universe and the viewing public at home. The Sith place a high importance on power and strength and will go to every extent to attain them. They are so intimidating and strong that it appears inconceivable for the good people to beat them. That is, till the Force's light side wins through love, compassion, and collaboration.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, be safe out there, and thanks for watching.
Why do you come to my tomb, Jedi?